I don't get to say this very often, but today I have some really great news regarding not only the probability, but almost the certainty of Fortnite Mobile returning to iOS within the next few months. Now, all the videos I've made over the last 3 years covering this entire Fortnite Mobile saga of the game being banned off of the iOS App Store has been me just giving general updates and not really having a time frame. I always tell you guys I'll keep you updated when more news comes because I really don't know if I can give you guys any dates or time frames as to when the game might be coming back. Now, obviously, over the last 3 years, we have had the introduction of things like NVIDIA GeForce now, I believe Luna Cloud Gaming, and there's another one that I'm forgetting, but honestly, the cloud gaming services on iOS are pretty mid compared to the actual native experience of downloading Fortnite on your iOS device and playing it that way. That's what everyone wants, and that's what everyone's been waiting for, and today we have some great news about this topic. Now, if you've been following my update videos over the last few months, there's been one thing in particular that I've mentioned in almost every single one of the videos, and that is something called sideloading. Now, to catch you guys up to speed if you don't know what it is, basically for all of you Android users, you're probably very familiar with this feature because every Android device in the world has sideloading. It's basically where you install an application outside of the App Store that was pre-installed on your device when you got it. So for example, if you want to install Fortnite on your Android device, you can do it via sideloading, and because the game is not on the Google Play Store, like if you go to the Google Play Store and you look up Fortnite Mobile, it's not there. It is just straight up not there. You can't find it there, and you would think to yourselves, well, oh man, can't download anymore. That's a GG's. Well, if you go to Google Chrome or whatever web browser you have on your Android device and you look up download Fortnite Mobile, you'll be brought to Epic Games website where you can then download Epic Games' game launcher on Android, install it, and then once you've installed their third-party app store on your Android device, you can then finally download Fortnite Mobile on Android. So you can download apps through alternative app stores on Android devices, and this is sideloading in a nutshell. Now, as you just saw, there is a few hoops to jump through, and it's definitely not as straightforward as just looking up an app in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, but still it gives consumers and it gives users like us the choice and the ability to download apps via different methods that might give us some more freedoms in terms of how we use our phones and devices, and that's exactly what we're looking for when it comes to the Fortnite Mobile iOS case, because it's the same thing. If you go to the iOS App Store, you look up Fortnite Mobile, you can't download it, and so really the only way we would ever be able to play Fortnite Mobile again is if it comes in the way of sideloading. Now, great news for us, at the beginning of this year, there was some rumors, and then what ended up being confirmed, that Apple is working on adding a sideloading feature into iOS 17. Now, if you don't know why that's great news, well, iOS 17, at the time of me recording this video and uploading it, should be out within around 2 weeks or so. The rumors are estimating that iOS 17 will be dropping between September 18th and September 20th. So if you're watching this video after the 20th of September, well, then iOS 17 is probably already out, and there's a good chance you'll know if sideloading is in the update or not. And I say that because although there are rumors that sideloading may be coming to iOS 17, and I say that because although the rumors almost point towards the fact that sideloading will be in the update at some point, we don't know if the update is going to come with sideloading pre-installed into devices, or if we're going to have to wait weeks and months to get sideloading, and that's because of one little catch that's holding all this together. Now, throughout all my videos in which I've talked about sideloading, I've also mentioned that Apple doesn't actually want this to happen, because if you think about it, the way that Apple and Google make a ton of their revenue is by users like you going into the App Store, downloading apps, and spending money inside of these apps. Maybe it's your favorite game, or maybe you're just downloading some DLC content to expand what access to the game you already have. But either way, if you spend money inside of an app on either the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store, you are giving 30% of the money you spend in that game to the host of that app store. So if I spend $10 on an iOS game, I'm giving $3 to Apple, and if I spend $10 on a game on Android, well, then I'm giving $3 to Google and the Google Play Store. So obviously these companies make a ton of money via this 30% almost sales tax, and so Apple really doesn't want to lose out on one of their biggest money making machines, that being the 30% tax they tack on to all of the revenue that is generated by apps and different games. But even though they don't want sideloading to be introduced, there is one legislative body that is forcing them within 6 months to include sideloading, and that is the European Union. Now, we know that there is now a 6-month countdown timer on Apple having to include sideloading on devices in the European Union, because they just put out a tweet today saying that there is 6 months to comply with the following social media platforms as well as following operating systems, those being Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. This really doesn't affect us for our circumstance, but what really affects us is the operating system being Google Android, iOS, and Windows PC OS. And you can see in the tweet, it says this mandate will allow users to download alternative competitive app stores. And that is all we want. That is literally the only thing we are fighting for, because if Epic Games can get the Epic Games App Store on iOS, then that means we can now download Fortnite Mobile on our iOS devices through the Epic Games Store and not through the Apple App Store, where Fortnite Mobile is most likely going to remain banned for years and years to come. So for once and for all, I have an actual date. And the reason I am super certain on this is because in the fine print, in the fine details of this whole legislative law they introduced, I believe it was 2 years ago, they gave these companies up to 3 years to comply with these new laws and regulations. And they're saying that if by March of 2024, that if these social networks and operating systems haven't followed the guidelines of this act, well, then they're gonna have to pay up to 20% of their annual income to the European Union as a fine. And if you're wondering how much Apple makes, this is how much Apple makes in a single year. And so they'd have to be forking up 20% of this, which is so much money. And so for them, it's just better if they comply with these laws, lose a little bit of money to side loading and people downloading apps outside of the App Store, and then spending their money directly with those apps and developers that way, rather than losing out on the 20% of revenue they would have to pay as a fine if they didn't comply with this new set of laws and regulations. Now, I keep mentioning the European Union in this, and that is the only caveat, and it's the fact that the European Union is the one introducing this legislation. So at the time of recording this, and what looks like is going to happen is if you live outside of the European Union, at least generally speaking, your operating system when you first get your phone won't have the ability to sideload. However, tech users, as you guys know, we're pretty creative, we're pretty intuitive when it comes to finding out ways to get around these small loopholes. So it could be something as small as making an Apple ID in a European Union country, or somehow tricking the device to think you're in the European Union, so that way you can update your iOS version to the firmware update that has the sideloading feature enabled. Now, because I really don't know how this is going to work in the slightest, I really don't want to say A, B, C, and D. This is how you're able to get the sideloading feature and then download Fortnite if you live outside of the European Union. But all I'm going to say is the future is looking bright, because it looks like a lot of other countries are trying to follow what the European Union is doing. They're realizing that these countries are making so much money hand over fist, and that the consumers are actually losing out in most of the cases. So I think the United States is also working on trying to draft and pass a bill similar to this that would make it so that sideloading has to be a feature on iOS devices, but that wouldn't happen for years and years. So it looks like we now have a 6-month countdown timer on when we can expect Fortnite Mobile to return to iOS via some sort of Epic Games Store by sideloading it onto your iOS device and then downloading Fortnite. So I know it is about a bajillion loopholes to jump through, and even then, I think there's only around 500 million people who live in the European Union, so under 10% of the globe can even access this feature natively. But like I said, there's almost certainly going to be some sort of workaround to get this version of iOS on your device, or to be able to sideload this Epic Games App Store onto your device, maybe by connecting your phone to a PC and installing it that way. Because as long as Epic Games has some sort of app store, I'm almost certain we'll be able to find a way to get it on our phones outside of the European Union, like in the United States, Canada, North America, or in parts of Asia. So all that to be said, the future is bright. For the first time, we have pretty much undeniable proof that within 6 months, Fortnite Mobile will return to iOS. Now, obviously, over these next 6 months, some small details might change here and there, like the timing and who all is going to get access to this feature. But as always, make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out on any updates regarding this, because things are starting to get spicy. And with iOS 17 dropping in just a few weeks, who knows, we might even be able to get access to the game sooner than we ever thought. But as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, a like would be greatly appreciated. And looks like we might be playing Fortnite Mobile on iOS sooner than we thought.